Hey everyone, welcome back to the Red Leaf Exotics channel. I'm Dom, and today we're going to be outside the greenhouse touring the bog gardens. All of the Sarracenia, Flytraps, and Drosera are looking really awesome this time of year. They've really shot up in the past few weeks, so it's a little rainy, overcast, but it should be nice weather for showing you guys the details on these beautiful plants. Here we go. So I'll just take you guys around some of the raised beds that I did just the past 2 years outside and show you what's going on in them. We've only had Sarracenia out here maybe for 2 seasons now, which isn't that long, not even a full 3 years. And they have grown so fast, even from little tiny seedlings. And a few of the plants right here in front of me are from little seedlings. Now, you're not going to hear me do Rocofusca spectabilis trismatiensis out here like I do with the Nepenthes. I don't know all the hybrid names as well, especially since a lot of these are newer creations, but I know some Sarracenia stuff, so I'll go through and just share my experience with these plants and how I've grown them here outside in Tennessee in Zone 7. So you could see how healthy and beautiful they're all looking this time of year. I have them in this raised bed, and it's filled with peat and sand. There's more peat than sand. I do it by eye and feeling. So once it feels, you know, muddy but a little gritty, some drainage in there, I'll fill this up, and then I'll plant the Sarracenia right in it. I keep this constantly moist to wet, and they thrive. I never allow these beds to dry out. Sarracenia do not want to dry out. So that is what they need, that nice moisture in the roots to keep them tall and beautiful like this. If they get dry, the pitchers can die and the plant's not really going to be happy. This one right here, I do know, it is a newer hybrid, Prometheus cross Adrian Slack. And this one I got from a friend, Trexler Carson, and it's looking so cool. It's a very vigorous plant. I got this one as a small seedling with a bunch of others, and this one matured before any of them. And I really like this dark streaking in the throat, almost like a flava. And it has beautiful like orange coloration around the lip. It is really, really nice. And if you guys come right down here, this is one thing I love about the beauty of hybridization. This is the same hybrid, but seed grown, so you get the variety. And look how cute these are with their pink lips. You can really see that Adrian Slack lending the nice white creamy color to the lid, and probably that nice bright pink lip. That's one thing I love about hybridization, is just seeing the different traits come through, and looking at this plant I can see both of those parents. I won't dig for the name tag on this one, but look at how beautiful these are. A lot of things that are in these beds are just Moriai's, different Moriai cultivars, which is a cross between the flavas and the leucophilas, which is a beautiful combination when you're hybridizing. But I love that one. There are some over here that are showing some really big pitchers for just being a year old from the seedlings. They're really starting to look nice. I love how big they are. I love the red. And this one is from Jerry Addington, a very well-known Sarracenia grower. And let me see if I could find the tag. Oh, it's Ace Addington cross Black Widow. And this is what you get from that. Love how big the lid is on this one. And just for their second year, I'd expect next year for them to do their absolute best. Sarracenia are herbaceous perennials, which mean they die back every year and then they come back. And if you live in zones, you know, 5 to maybe 8 or 9, you can definitely grow these outside really easy. When I lived in Hawaii, just a little bit up the mountain, I had a friend who grew Sarracenia leucophila all year round with no dormancy, and they did really well. However, I always suggest Sarracenia to be in colder temperate climates where they could get that winter dormancy, and that usually produces the most robust plants. I've noticed when Sarracenia don't get that dormancy or not a long enough or hard enough dormancy, they kind of become spindly and a little weak. The biggest, best plants I've seen get that dormancy and they come back so nice and strong. There's also some other native bog plants that I have planted in here. One of them is called Bog Beauty. It gets a beautiful pink flower. I'm unsure of the scientific name, but Bog Beauty has become a bog hog. It has taken over everything, but I am gonna manage it. I'll keep it weeded away from the very, crowns of the Sarracenia, but I do think it will help the pitchers stay more stout if we get strong winds. It'll fill in between, and that's how a lot of Sarracenia grow in the wild. They have a lot of grasses and native plants around them that really help them, stay upright instead of blowing over. You can see there's a fly there, wiggling his little hands. He's like, yes, time to get some food. Little does he know he's gonna be the food. Coming down in here, we have some Flytraps just growing up. These ones are pretty big. This one here is King Henry. And they're getting so big already. Just kind of growing down in here. They even seed and come up from the seed, which is really cool. So for just 2 years, I'm really excited to see how everything has filled in and it has adapted. This bed I just did, probably one of the last ones I've done, but you could see there's Sorus here. I made some divisions over the winter, so we just got these 2 big pitchers right now. But hybrids like this is another Morii cultivar. Hybrids like this with the leucophylla in them usually produce their best pitchers later in the season, as to where the flavas come up a little earlier. Here's Prometheus, one that is one of the parents in those hybrids I showed you back there. And while we are looking at this flower on Prometheus, I'll talk to you guys a little bit about pollination, because you're gonna see some pollen sacs around the garden with seed pods in them. So this is a Sarracenia flower. This one is way past its prime. So they usually have petals hanging out of here, and I'll see if there's any left, but I'm pretty sure we're done for the season. But if you come under the flower, this is where all the pollen will be. It's not there now, but bees will come into the flower. And when they go in, the pollen will go on there from another plant. And then when they're in there, they'll get the pollen. Then they have to come out another way. There's only one way back out, so they don't come back past the stigma and self-pollinate the plant. Really interesting, almost like an orchid, how a lot of their flowers are designed a special way for pollinators. There are pollen sacs on some of the plants that I hybridized. So I usually will cover them after pollinating them to make sure no ants or bugs get in there and mess up the hard work that I did. I won't collect these till later in the season, and to plant seeds and find out they're not what you did can be frustrating, because it does take a long time. This is the Flava Georgia Giant. This is one of my top favorite Sarracenia in the collection. I got this one from Conrad at Nepenthes Jungle, a really close friend. Love Conrad and this plant. Funny story, when he came to visit us when we first moved here, he had a truck full of Sarracenia, and he pulled one of these out of the back with one pitcher on it, probably this size, and it was the biggest one I've ever seen in my life. So I told him, like, Conrad, I need that plant, and we found a way to get it in the collection, and now it always, this one reminds me of Conrad. And that's the beauty of plants, having, different selections in the garden that remind you of people. We have Adrian Slack here. This looks so good. Did a lot of breeding with this one. It's a very popular Morii cultivar. Gets that nice red lip, a beautiful creamy top. This is another one later in the season. It will be covered in pitchers with all these nice creamy kind of lids. It really stands out amongst the red pitchers. You could see this one here coming is going to be bigger. I love this white one over here. This is just its second year, again, from a little seedling. What is this? It's Adrian Slack cross leucophylla. It's Leucophila, very good, cross Adrian Slack. This is another one that's from, no, this one is not from Carson. This is from Atlanta Carnivorous Gardens. You could check them out on Instagram. And really love the white on this plant. It's very stunning. It definitely turned out to be something I would keep and possibly name as a cultivar later. But I am gonna get it bigger and more clumpy before that can happen. It's just its second year and I really wanna see what it's capable of. I have some different containers and barrels that I got at Lowe's that I also do the same raised bed idea in. And the plants just love this. On the hottest days in summer, I will have to come here and give them some water, but they do awesome. This one here is great. This is a Sarracenia purpurea Brunswick Beauty. Nice deep red pitchers. You could see the Leucophilas coming in. I have a typical form and then an all white or all green form. And these look so little right now, but later in the year they will get some pretty nice big pitchers, which is always really nice, like I said, to have that later season flush of pitchers on the plants. Here is another raised bed, a lot of really cool stuff in here. And my plan is to take out the non-spectacular plants once I grow a lot of things out. I'm really trying to stick with popular or, you know, really good cultivars that have good color, good traits for breeding. I don't want to have a ton of Sarracenia just everywhere with all the traits in the books. But speaking of good traits, really well known, this one here is Legacy. Another one of those Moriae hybrids, and these are just so beautiful. A lot of white, a smaller lid, and it does get a beautiful pink, you know, design around the edge of it. It is really striking. I have to say, when I was getting heavier into Sarracenia, you know, I look at a lot of the hybrids and I'm like, they all look the same. And people always say that about Nepenthes. But there are select cultivars of Sarracenia that are just amazing looking. Here's one down here. This one is called Potty Mouth. And it gets these huge pitchers, kind of distorted mouths and lids. And then they'll turn a deep red or orange color as the season goes on. But really big and just another one that stands out. I love when they have a really big lid like this one does. If you guys want to see, there's actually some bugs squirming down in here. We got like a ladybug and a, I don't even know if that's really not a ladybug, but it looks like one. Some moths. And during midsummer, some of these pitchers are filled right to the brim with bugs. There are also some native orchids in these beds. They're blooming. This is beautiful. This is the Calapagon orchid. And these love growing in the same conditions as Sarracenias and the Flytraps. Nice and moist, boggy soil. And every year they come up with these beautiful pink flowers. Orchids are always a must-have in the garden. Let's see, we have another famous cultivar back here. This is Reptilian Rose. Nice big spring pitchers. There's one over here too, it's smaller, but it has more pitchers. But really nice big lids on these. There is a Flava Purpurea here. And this one I love so much simply for the cultivar name, Carmelita. That's my mom's name. So another one I got from Conrad, and I'm like, I need that plant because it's named after my mom. And I mean, when do you really hear the name Carmelita? So that's a really special plant and one I know I'll always have in the gardens here. Here's a hot one up front. This is just its second season, Ellie Wang from Mike Wang. Look at the beautiful dark pitchers on this and that bright white lid, heavily covered in almost black veins and some pink. How nice is that? Usually by fall, my Sarracenia drive ends, and then when spring comes and I start seeing all my friends posting different pictures of them and stuff, I start to feel the rush again, especially once they start coming up like this. They're just ridiculous looking. Here's another one that was from a seedling, and this one is berry pastry crossed with rubricorbera purpulips, cross purpulips. And this is one I will keep from the seedlings. Look at the intense lids on this. Something like that to me is like cultivar status, very dramatic. If you look at these two beds here, I'd say out of all these plants, minus the Ellie Wing, this lid really calls your attention. And while we're here looking at some pine needles, I put these on for a little bit of winter protection just around the crowns. And this also helps keep weeds down, and it insulates the plants from the hot heat once it starts getting warmer. So it does a lot of good stuff for them. Here's another newer barrel, planted this one in the fall. There's some Flytraps coming up. These are huge. This one is low giant. You can see how big they are. Not gonna stick my finger in there because I'm gonna let it save its energy for an actual bug or something that it can digest to go into there. Got some Flava ornata, improved black veins. There's a beautiful one down the end of the bog. I'll show you guys. This one's smaller, but really striking pictures on that. We're gonna move up to this next raised bed kind of thing I made. I just made this out of old barnwood that we had on the property. Put a pond liner in it. This one has perlite and peat, but if I could do it again, I wouldn't have put the perlite because now it's all on the top. But as sphagnum and stuff grows, this will fill in nice. You could see there's a lot of different stuff in here. There are some Drosera filiformis right here. You can see they have their really long tentacles covered in the honeydew. Drosera filiformis are really hardy here for us. They come up probably around early April, and then they shoot all these long leaves up, and these are covered in bugs, and they're gonna be blooming soon too. Some pine tree weeds in here. This is a Sarracenia purpurea, and I crossed this with some cool things like that Ellie Wing I showed you. A lot of Flytraps in here that have just broken dormancy. I actually did a lot of dividing early in the year, and a lot of these, I will separate them when they're dormant, and then they come up so they can adjust and get their new root system. If you look really close, I'll move this tag, you could see all the seedlings coming up from the Drosera filiformis. Look at all them everywhere, just covering the ground. Here's another one of the Calopogon tuberosus orchids, or grass pink. These are in a lot of the beds, and this year they are nicer than ever. They have this little bulb you could see right here. This one's above ground, and then they shoot these leaves out of it. And in the winter, they do go dormant and disappear. Down on this end, there is another Flava ornata, improved black veins plant. And look at how beautiful the veins are on this. Flava is definitely, it's hard, but I would say one of my more favorite species. I was gonna say favorite, but I don't know, the purpureas and the leucophilas are pretty hard to beat. But all three of those are just great. Love this one. Here is Red Monster coming up, a really nice Flytrap with beautiful red coloration. Some nice sized traps on them too. And just in a few weeks or months, these will be loaded with traps. We still are getting some cool weather intermittently here in Tennessee. So once that stabilizes, we'll have a lot more nicer traps. There's another bed down here. It's probably be one of our last beds that I'll show you guys. This is a really cool hybrid. This is Leo Wilkerson Adrian Slack. You can see that Adrian Slacky kind of look to it. Nice bright white lid and the red coloration. As the years go on and these get bigger and I start dividing them, I'll probably start a big flood table, put all the divisions there, kind of have a temperate greenhouse in the works so that the wind and early spring frost don't damage anything once they come up. So that will be really cool to have, and definitely do a video on that when it happens. But for now, these will stay outside, and like I said earlier in the video, they're herbaceous perennials, and the key and the trick to them is sleep, creep, leap. Perennials always kind of hang around the first year. The next year they look really good, but it's that third year that they really explode. And the same for the Sarracenia. I will do some more updates and stuff as the season goes on and these change, of course, but I did want to get you guys a video just sharing some of the really cool outdoor carnivores. If you are curious and you do want to grow these, I highly suggest it. There are so many different kinds of Flytraps, Sarracenia and Drosera, that can grow outdoors in zones roughly from 5 to 8 or 9, so don't be afraid. If you see these in a store, I never suggest growing them indoors. Sarracenia are definitely a beautiful plant to grow outside. You know, it's kind of like, are you gonna grow a blue spruce in your windowsill? Sarracenia are the same thing. They wanna be outside, they wanna get cold, they wanna get these elements, and that is what keeps them super happy. If you're gonna try one indoors, I would suggest venosa, which is a southern form of purpurea that likes it a little warmer. So I have friends that have them inside and have had them inside for a couple years with no problems. But overall, if you have no clue what you're doing, you wanna grow Sarracenia, build a bog with peat and sand, make sure it's nice and wet. Like I said, there's pond liner in here. It holds all the moisture in there, and I never, ever, never, ever let these dry out. They have to stay moist to wet at all times, and you will be rewarded with all of these pictures. So if you guys have any more specific questions, I'll definitely answer those. Really easy to take care of the bog garden plants, and they are so rewarding. I'm Dom here at Red Leaf Exotics. I hope you enjoyed the outdoor bog gardens here, and I can't wait to update you guys later in the season. Everybody have a beautiful day, and I'll see you on our next video. Thank you.